Hello, all. Good evening and welcome. I'm Mamta Rawat from the Corporate Communications team of CareEdge Ratings. I welcome you to our discussion today on residential real estate, Deleveraging in Focus. We sincerely appreciate your time in joining us for this webinar. We would like to welcome our esteemed guest speakers for today. Mr. Jayantt Manmadkar, CFO at Brigade Enterprises Limited. Mr. Harmohan Sahni, Executive Director and CEO at Raymond Limited and Raymond Realty. Mr. Pramod Ranjan Dwivedi, President, Real Estate at Ambuja Neotia Group. Mr. Kunal Wadhwani, Principal Investments, HDFC Capital Advisors Limited. This session will be moderated by Divyesh Shah, Director at CareEdge Ratings. We will commence this session with a presentation by Amita Yadav, Assistant Director at CareEdge Ratings. This will be followed by a panel discussion and Q&A session. In case of queries, participants are requested to key in your panel. We will take up your queries at the end of the discussion. Now, may I invite Amita to make the presentation.
Thank you, Mamta. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the esteemed panelists and the participants attending this webinar today. I, Amita Yadav, will now present CARE's view on the real estate sector with focus on residential segment. In this presentation, we will cover the residential market overview, government's initiative promoting real estate, growing industry consolidation, performance of top listed players and their outlook, deleveraging trend, and ratings landscape. Starting with the key messages, the real estate sector in India has experienced a significant growth closely tied to the country's macroeconomic expansion. India's GDP grew at an average rate of 6 to 8% over the last decade and is expected to grow at 6.5% for 2024. This steady economic momentum has fueled demand for both residential and commercial properties. The government's infrastructure push and initiatives like RERA, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and Swami Fund has also played a crucial role in driving real estate growth. In recent years, we have also witnessed a remarkable shift in consumer preferences and industry trends. Buyers are increasingly seeking larger homes, driven by post-pandemic lifestyle changes. The market is also witnessing rising property prices. Additionally, sustainability is becoming a key priority with an increasing demand for green and eco-friendly buildings. This push for energy efficient and sustainable construction is set to double the green building market in India by 2025, appealing to environmentally conscious buyers. Furthermore, with strong sales momentum and robust collections, developers are focusing on deleveraging to strengthen their balance sheet, positioning this sector for more stability and sustainable growth in coming years. Together, these trends are driving positive consumer sentiments, which is expected to keep inventory overhang close to 1 year. Now, as already discussed, the real estate sector has experienced a broad-based recovery across all segments since the pandemic. But the residential market has arguably seen the swiftest and steepest resurgence among all the real estate segments. Talking about the pan-India residential market, over the past 5 years, it grew with a remarkable CAGR of 21%, surging from nearly 7 trillion rupees in 2017 to an impressive 23 trillion rupees in 2023. This significant growth was due to the urbanization and positive economic indicators, although the year 2017 set a low base owing to demonetization. Now, looking ahead, we anticipate a robust growth of 8 to 9% in the real estate market size, crossing 42 trillion rupees by 2030, driven by robust domestic economic growth. And while analyzing the pan-India market, we have observed that the top 6 cities, which includes MMR, NCR, Bengaluru, Pune, Hyderabad, and Chennai, they contribute to approximately 4 to 5% of the total units sold. However, in terms of value, they account for a substantial 15% of the total sales in the country. And by 2030, the value-wise contribution from these top 6 cities is expected to increase to 19%. So this slide represents a comprehensive analysis of key growth drivers shaping the real estate sector. One of the drivers is the reduction in average household size, largely influenced by the rise of nuclear families and shifting societal norms. As household sizes decreases, demand for individual housing units has surged, unlocking new opportunities across various housing segments. In addition to this, the expansion of job opportunities is fueling rapid urbanization. This urbanization trend is likely to accelerate as cities attract more talent, supported by the ongoing increase in offshoring activities, which continues to strengthen the job market and further escalating the demand for housing in the major urban areas. Furthermore, the sector is receiving a significant boost from government-backed infrastructure projects, which are enhancing connectivity and accessibility across cities. Improved infrastructure not only facilitate urban expansion, but also increases the attractiveness of peripheral areas, creating new real estate development zones. Now, driven by these economic shifts, India is also seeing an influx of higher paying jobs, which is directly influencing the affordability landscape in real estate. Increased disposable incomes, particularly among the growing middle class, have improved the ability of individuals and families to invest in properties. Now, along with the discussed macroeconomic factors, the government's key initiatives such as implementation of RERA, introduction of Swami Fund, and schemes like Housing for All have also played a vital role in shaping the real estate industry. RERA has brought in transparency, timely project completion, and accountability among developers, bringing the fundamental shift in the sector. Swami Fund, which is a special window for affordable and mid-income housing, has also played a crucial role in addressing the liquidity issues faced by the real estate sector. It aimed at providing financial support to stalled housing projects in the affordable and mid-income housing segment. And with the introduction of PMAY 2.0 in the current union budget, the government continues its focus on affordable housing. The scheme focuses on reducing the existing demand-supply gap in the affordable housing segment. In line with the pan-India growth, the sales volume in top 6 cities have also grown at a healthy annualized rate of over 20% since 2020 and culminated in a 10-year high in 2023. Increased savings during lockdowns, minimal income disruption in mid and high income brackets, and a robust economic growth forecast have fueled demand in the residential real estate market of these 6 cities. The residential market sustained its momentum as it stepped into 24, with sales in H1 of 2024 scaling to an all 11-year high in terms of half-yearly sales. At CareEdge, we expect both sales and launches to be above 4.5 lakh units for 2024 and inventory overhang to remain close to 1 year. This growth momentum is projected to persist due to robust demand. Though the Indian real estate is emerging as a preferred investment avenue amidst market volatility, the demand primarily stems from end users as the significance of owning a home has become more vital post-COVID-19. Now, as mentioned earlier, there is a shift towards consumer preference towards larger size residential units with good amenities. This is also evident from the growing share of luxury segment, which increased to 27% in H1 2024, driven by rising income levels and a growing trend of home buyers upgrading their existing homes. Now, having looked at the combined performance of top 6 cities, now let's analyze their individual performance. All 6 cities have experienced significant growth in sales compared to pre-COVID levels, with Hyderabad leading the way. The growth in Hyderabad can be attributed to a stable political environment, favorable government policies, and rising demand from IT sector. Despite having the lowest sales volume, Chennai achieved the second highest growth rate, recovering from the impact of natural disasters between 2017 and 2019. And among the top 6 cities, the western markets contributed the most to overall sales, driven by major infrastructure development, expanding job opportunities, and urbanization. In NCR, Gurgaon emerged as a standout performer, contributing substantially to the growth. Bengaluru sales remained consistent with continued demand from IT sector. Now, in line with the demand, Hyderabad experienced the highest growth in launches as well, driven by economic expansion, infrastructure development, and supportive government policies. Following Hyderabad, Pune and MMR have both more than doubled their pre-COVID launch levels, achieving the highest number of new launches in the top 6 cities. Bengaluru developers continue to proficiently manage the demand-supply balance. Chennai, which saw a slower launch activity in 22, experienced a notable rebound in 2023, with launches doubling in the year, reflecting a strong recovery phase. NCR, on the other hand, saw a relatively lower launches among top 6 cities as developers focused on completing and liquidating the existing inventory. With robust sales, the inventory overhang across most cities has improved significantly and is now standing at less than 2 years. However, in Hyderabad, the inventory overhang has risen to 19 months, owing to the substantial higher launches compared to absorption. Due to the strong sales momentum, the reduced inventory overhang, preferences for large-size units with amenities, increase in input cost, and higher land prices, the rise in property prices was inevitable. Prices rose by approximately 8% nationwide in 2023, with Hyderabad and Bengaluru experiencing the highest growth. However, despite this increase in prices, buyer sentiment has remained unaffected so far. And based on the expectation of sustained sales momentum, CareEdge estimated that rates will continue to rise between 5 to 7% in 2024, largely driven by the end user market. Now, one of the prevalent themes that we have witnessed post-RERA implementation and demonetization is growing consolidation in the industry. Accordingly, alongside the evolving preference for larger size houses, there is also a growing inclination towards established and renowned developers. Timely project completion, focus on sustainable projects, use of technology, and cost efficiency by these players is aiding in healthy sales momentum. The increasing market share of these developers can be seen from the graph. Furthermore, with new supply, majorly in mid and premium segment, is being dominated by these large and reputed developers, which is likely to further increase their market share. So far, we have explored the strong performance of the top 6 cities, fueled by improvement in key macroeconomic indicators. Now, let's look at the performance of the key listed players in this sector. With the shift towards reputed and organized developers, coupled with high sales growth, the pre-sales of top listed players grew at a CAGR of 27% during FY19 to FY24, collectively surpassing rupees 1,000 billion. We have also observed high sales velocity during initial stage of project launch by these developers, which is unlike pre-COVID scenario. These developers has also efficiently utilized collections to manage their debt, reducing gross debt from rupees 50,000 crore in FY19 to about 33,000 crore in FY23. With new launches in FY24, this gross debt increased to 43,000 crore. However, the gross debt to collection ratio has remained consistently below unity over the past 3 years, despite this increase. This deleveraging is also a result of developers maintaining financial discipline, focusing on sales rather than holding on to the inventory, optimal mix of land buy versus JDA, and raising equity. Over the past 3 years, we have seen that top listed developers have raised more than 30,000 crore through IPOs, QIPs, and preferential issues. The inventory overhang for these developers mirrors the trend of top 6 cities and has been declining due to higher sales velocity. Even though new inventory continues to be added in the market, the accelerated pace of sales has absorbed a significant portion of this supply. And as a result, the time required to sell off the existing inventory has decreased, demonstrating their resilience and the effective alignment of supply with market demand. This low level of inventory overhang has prompted developers to launch over 500 million square feet of new projects in near to medium term, underscoring their strong confidence in the real estate market. Of the 500 million square feet, more than 175 MSF is expected to be launched in the next 1 year, which is notably 42% higher than the previous year. The launches by these developers are in various segments like plotted developments, villas, mid and luxury housing, integrated township across Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. We are also witnessing large developers entering newer geographies to meet their expansion plans. Now, in line with the sector outlook, the outlook for these players is also favorable, with several key matrices indicating strong performance. Pre-booking is expected to exceed rupees 1.4 trillion, reflecting robust demand and continued buyer confidence. Consequently, collections are expected to surpass rupees 850 billion. And despite significant launches, the debt to collection ratio is anticipated to remain below 0.7 times, highlighting ongoing financial discipline and reduced reliance on external debt. Additionally, the inventory overhang is likely to be maintained below 15 months. So up till now, we have discussed the performance of cities and developers and how the key players in the sector are focused on deleveraging and improving their balance sheet. Let us now move forward to discuss the CareEdge Ratings perspective on real estate sector. This slide broadly shows the rating dispersion of companies rated by CARE as on June 30, 2024. Around 50% of the portfolio is in investment grade, that is BBB minus and above rating. Companies in higher category represent the organized sector of the industry with strong parentage, established brand image, demonstrated group support, better corporate governance, etc. And the operation of these entities are professionally managed. They have product diversification like residential, commercial leasing, and are also less leveraged. Now talking about the credit ratio. The credit ratio is the ratio of upgrade to downgrade for a specified period. As seen from the chart here, the credit ratio has improved from below unity in the past years to 2x or above. This implies more upgrades than downgrades unlike the yesteryears. This positive shift can be largely attributed to the improved performance of real estate developers, As the economy recovered from pandemic and began to stabilize, developers demonstrated robust financial health and operational efficiency, leading to a favorable credit ratio. This slide highlights the key credit monitorables. So the key monitorables for improved credit perspective can be improvement in project execution, sales, leverage profile, and sustained improvement in receivable coverage ratio or cash coverage ratio, to name a few. The negative factors can be deterioration in cash flow position due to delay in project completion or lower sales, unenvisaged debt addition resulting in deterioration in leverage profile, and weakening of key ratios like cash coverage ratio, committed receivable coverage ratio, etc. To summarize, demand growth is expected to extend to Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities as well. Developers will persist their focus on sustainable projects while maintaining financial and operational discipline. The robust economic growth, infrastructure push, and demographic dividend will play a vital role. With this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you everyone for patient listening. Over to you, Mamta.
Thank you, Amita. Attendees are requested to key in their questions, which we will take up after our panel discussion. Now, may I invite Divyesh Shah to take over the session, please. Divyesh Shah is a director at CareEdge with a total work experience of more than 20 years, of which he has been associated with CareEdge for about 18 years. He has worked in the research and ratings division at CareEdge, and it's the vertical head of the real estate sector. Divyesh is part of various rating and criteria committees at CareEdge and is an MBA in finance by qualification. Over to you, Divyesh.
Thanks, Mamta. And thank you, Amita, for an interesting presentation. I'm really thankful to all our panelists for taking the time out and joining us for this panel discussion. In our panel today, we have Mr. Jayantt Manmadkar, who is the CFO of Brigade Enterprises Limited. He is a qualified chartered accountant, company secretary, and costs and management accountant. He comes with over 30 years of experience in the field of finance and accounts, covering the areas of banking, treasury, fund and cash flow management, etc. Before joining Brigade, he was associated with Cohance Life Sciences Limited, Hyderabad. In the past, he has worked with Mahindra Life Spaces, Wockhardt Limited, Reliance Retail, Siagram Manufacturing, VIP Industries Limited, etc. A very warm welcome to you, sir. We have Mr. Harmohan Sahni, Executive Director, Raymond Limited, and CEO, Raymond Realty. Mr. Sahni, a chartered accountant with 32 years experience, has worked in large to medium-sized organizations, a well-rounded experience in the real estate industry since 1995. Apart from being responsible for various functions, he has successfully run real estate operations and balance sheet for 15 years as a leader. He is now in a leadership position at Raymond. Welcome, sir. Our third panel member for today, Mr. Pramod Ranjan Dwivedi, President Real Estate, Ambuja Neotia Group. He started his professional career with Ambuja Cement in the year 1997 as a management trainee. He is Senior Executive MBA from Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, and also holds a degree in Executive MBA from Indian Institute of Management, Kolkata. Post completion of his BSc from Patna University, he completed his MBA from Center of Management Development, Modinagar. He has completed Logistics Management from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He also serves as Executive Committee member of CareEdge Bengal and Director, Shopping Centers Association of India, New Delhi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And our fourth panelist for today is Mr. Kunal Wadhwani, Principal Investments at HDFC Capital Advisors Limited. He serves as a seasoned investment professional and a key member of the senior management team at HDFC Capital, the private equity arm of HDFC Bank. With over 2 decades of experience and $5 billion in real estate investments, Kunal takes on a significant role in managing the investment function at one of India's largest residential funds, prioritizing investment in the development of affordable and mid-income homes. Kunal's contributions extend beyond investment management. He played a pivotal role in establishing HDFC Capital Advisors Limited in 2016 and currently serves as a key member of the Internal Investment Committee, overseeing investments and key organizational decisions at HDFC Capital Advisors. Moreover, his tenure from 2009 to 2016 with the investment team managing HDFC AMC Real Estate PMS showcased his proficiency in investment management. The fund was awarded Best Real Estate Fund in India for 3 years in a row, from 2013 to 2015, and Real Estate Fund of the Decade in 2016 by CNBC Awards. Kunal holds a master's degree in real estate development from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, complemented by a master's degree in management studies and a bachelor's degree in computer engineering from University of Mumbai. Welcome to you too.
Right, thanks.
So great. We indeed have an illustrious panel with us today to give us valuable insights on the current situation of the residential real estate sector. Starting the panel discussion, I would like to have the views from Mr. Manmadkar. As we saw in our presentation, the sector has shown remarkable performance. What, in your view, will be the growth drivers going forward? Real estate being cyclical industry, how strong and robust will the growth cycle be?
Thank you, Divyesh. I think Amita has really covered various aspects in her presentation today, which touches upon all the fundamentals of the industry. In particular, her presentation was on the residential side of the business. So the real underlying factor today is the growth of India, the GDP growth that we see anything between 6.5% to 7% at a scale at which we operate. I think that itself is one of the biggest factor. And the other indicators that we see which are in line with this growth that we are targeting is the growth in office or lease business that is happening. Now, so many GCCs are coming into India, and clearly, if we see calendar year FY24 first half, then we see GCC growth of about 48%, both in terms of area leased as well as the revenue that is generated by the GCCs. And this is coming primarily to the top 6 cities. And in that, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Pune, Mumbai, these are the cities which are leading in that basis. And as we always say that any 1 square foot growth that happens in commercial area, which basically gives equivalent to 4 to 5 square foot push to the demand in the residential business. So that is something which is very clearly reflecting into the strong absorption that we see in all the markets, at least where we operate. And that is something which is reflected into the lower vacancy rate, whether it is office, lower inventory, whether it is residential, market by market, it has gone down. Income levels have gone up. The affordability index has really gone up. So every indicator that you really see is falling in the basic fundamental that our country is growing and income levels are increasing. And post-COVID, there is a clear shift where consumers want to shift to the better houses and larger houses. And therefore, the average housing sizes are also grown in last maybe 2 to 3 years, at least by 25 to 30% in terms of the area of average unit that has been sold. So if we really see all of these things, I think these are the fundamentals. The core is very good. And because of the typical demand that surged, we have seen the price increase. Some of the cities like Chennai have caught up in terms of the price, which is a good thing. And going forward, the underlying demand looks very strong. And therefore, that really gives the confidence in terms of the current cycle and the longevity of the same better than the previous ones. Thank you.
Okay, I think it was a good perspective. And just to a follow-up question to this, in the past we have seen a lot of investor participation, and that did impact the sector. But currently, do you see more of end user market that are actually buying the homes, or you still see investor participation? And any risk that you see to the sector because of this?
Yeah. So basically, I will again speak in the markets where we operate, mainly in the south markets of Chennai, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. What we have seen is that, and instead of two categories, we'll put them into three categories. One is the end consumer or end customer who buys it for his own use. Second is the investor. That means that person also is not going to stay there, but he wants to register it. And then he will have to put it up on the rent. So he has he wants to hold it as an investor. And third category is like a speculator, I would call it as. Maybe the word can be used differently by different individual, but just for understanding purpose, that these are the guys when they want to book at an early stage and before maybe completion or at the time of completion, they want to flip and get the increase. So what is our observation is that we are seeing first and second category more often more. So typically it is about 75-80% of end users, and maybe about close to 18-20% is investors. Very few speculators that we see. And again, everybody has their own approach. On a sustainable basis, we believe is that we have certain basic fundamentals as an approach of business, policy of business, where we don't encourage the speculators. And some of the things that will be helpful to the industry on this is that as much as less you use the back-ended payment plans, as much as less you sell more units, select 10, 20, 50 units to a group of individuals or a set of individuals. I think that is something which will also make the industry more serving to the end users, more serving to the investor category, and less of speculation, which really gives a lot of stability to the business operations on the whole. So we really see a lot more end users who are coming and buying the houses.
Yeah, true. I think Mr. Sahni has dropped out. He's not in the coverage area. Once he joins, we'll add him for the discussions. In the meantime, Dwivedi ji, you also representing the east side of India. Do you also agree to this perspective that there is more end users who are buying it, or you see a froth in the market coming from the investors or speculators, the word used by Manmadkar ji?
Like Ambuja, I should not talk about individually about Ambuja, but I'm talking about the major players in this part of the country. It is not mostly driven by investors. It has been mostly driven by end users only. And what has happened post-Lehman, we have seen that real estate for a quite longer period of time, investor was not driving this business. And that was also seen with the impact that almost for 6-7 years, there was not much increase in prices. You could hardly get the inflation adjustment. Post-COVID, what we have seen that end users are only driving, and that is the reason why you are seeing so much of appreciation, whether it is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. Everywhere we have seen appreciation, and appreciations are in some of the markets in 2, 3 or 4 years horizon are even more than 150-200% is what we have done. So it's mostly driven by end users only.
So I think given the end users are buying, or the genuine people who want to buy are buying, this outlook, fundamentally the sector looks in a good spot then because of this.
Yeah, obviously, because end users are driving, so fundamentally it has to be the most sustainable model, because then you are not fueled by anything inorganically. So what we have seen that every individual whosoever has seen COVID. During COVID period, everybody felt like after Wi-Fi, house was the most utilized item for every individual. And everybody felt that if Wi-Fi could be slightly with more higher speed or with more bandwidth, so that everybody in the family could use it. Similarly, in case of house also, everybody felt the need that there should be some extra space for office meetings, work from home, tuition, my space if somebody is playing music and all that. So that is where it was felt. And then what happened? There was a push from every individual to upgrade. And this upgrade has created a chain reaction kind of thing, if I may call it. Every individual, every household has either upgraded or thinking of upgrading. And that's across the board. I'm not getting into this nuclear family and all that because that is all known. But whosoever is having her house, like even if he's having a 5 BHK, 6 BHK, he would want to move to a house which has got more and more amenities. Like today, somebody says, how's the market? How do you see the outlook? I would simply say, please go to the top of any high-rise building and see all the low-rise buildings. And then you can see they're all your customers in the time to come, because that is where the upgradation is going to happen. Standalone buildings need to upgrade. What happens if you're part of a gated community with a lot of amenities and facilities, especially which are centered around sports, fitness, wellness, community living, nice landscaping. The moment you are inside, you have your own world. You don't feel the need of, again, going back to a club where you can spend time with your community, because you spend a lot of time in commuting, and people generally don't want to spend too much of time in community considering the traffic or the bottleneck which we are seeing in the cities. So this has become the real driver to push for higher pricing as well as more demand.
Thank you for this perspective. Now, one more question that, I would like to ask is, as the sales are growing, it is imperative that developers will launch projects, which we also saw in the presentation. Just we want, if you can share your experience on the various models or strategies that are adopted by the developers, and any challenges that you see for launches or execution of projects. I think execution risk is what everybody looks at in real estate.
For disciplined players, I do not see any challenge when it comes to either launch or execution. What happens when I'm saying disciplined players? Because if you are disciplined, then you will not be launching unless you have planned properly. Because in real estate, the most crucial aspect of the business is planning. And I'm saying planning, which starts from the day you see the land, you do the market study, and you decide that what kind of products would work best in this location, whether it is going to be office, retail, residential, and then suppose you decide to do a residential, and if the land use is flexible, if you have been given the land use to be flexible, then in that residential, what segment would be the most suitable, and then after that, what would be the size, who will be your TG, what kind of, if the TG is there, if you know your TG, then what kind of amenities, facilities they are looking for, or what is the pricing. And if you are able to crack this aspect of the business, rest becomes a routine work. Execution, I don't see as a challenge with the help of technology. Yes, there was not with extreme weather and all that. Labor shortage was a concern, and that continues to be a big concern. And in the time to come, that will become more and more difficult. But what I personally feel that if you are able to use good technology, and cash flow is not a challenge, because if you have planned properly, so you will get enough sales. So funding won't be a big challenge. Then this becomes very smooth, and for good reputed developers with good technology use in terms of BIM and other MSP projects software, the effective project management would lead to smoother life with peace of mind. You can go back and sleep properly.
Okay. Taking this point ahead, I would like to have views of Mr. Wadhwani that, we are seeing launches across the sector, and we saw in the presentation as well. But one thing that we are noticing is, the mid-income or the affordable housing, lower mid-income segment is witnessing decline in sales and launches. I think after COVID, this segment was marginally hit. And what reasons, would you also attribute to this, given your experience?
So, first of all, thank you for inviting me here, and the panelists did a great job till now, and even the CareEdge presentation was superb till now. While it is true that the affordable segment has reduced, but in our perspective, it is still attractive. And we think that the total demand in this sector is going to be about 35 million units. And if I consider pricing of about 25 lakhs a unit, this is a $1 trillion opportunity. So, no, I think there are myths around affordable housing that have played out, and people have found excuses not to do affordable housing. For example, I'll give you examples. For example, people have been saying land cost is too high, and one of the reasons is that's why we can't develop. But one of the other things that mentioned on the panel also is that infrastructure is being developed at a crazy pace.
Yeah, yeah.
About 14 lakh crores that is going to be spent in the next 5 years, according to the budget estimates. And that is going to create demand, land availability in the next few years, which was going to bring, land prices will become a little lower. So people have been able to structure land deals better now, and affordable housing by taking care of these land deals, people have been able to do pretty well. For example, I'll tell you, Signature Global, one of the developers that started in 2014 till date, has sold 21,000 crores. It is now the fifth largest developer in the country by market cap, 25,000 crores, 20,000 crores as of today. So, there are myths around affordable housing that it's not doing well around, and that creates a situation where people don't want to enter into it. But actually, it's doing quite well. We ourselves are a fund that's focused entirely on this. We've launched, it's a $4 billion fund. We're funding about 250,000 units. And most of these are in the low and mid income segment.
Is it the margins like developers, this segment of other segments are doing so good? The developers are focusing on high margins, which you can gain in a bit higher priced units. Would that be one reason? And our local developers then, I know Signature is a name, it's a listed entity, but then does it give advantage to the local developers to play a role here?
Absolutely. And I think one of the other things we discussed on this panel was that we are saying that, the larger developers are doing better. But I still think, for example, I'll give you some stats. We have, India is selling about 8 lakh crores of stock every year, new stock across 40 cities, 8 lakh crores. This is only 14% being done by the listed players and the larger players.
Yes.
Only about 14 to 15%. It is still largely being played by the smaller players. It's such a huge market. So the advantage is clearly that this has to be done by the smaller players, but also, if also Mr. Pramod Dwivedi said, with better planning, with better technology, all of this has now become more accessible, use of new construction techniques, use of technology in execution of projects, using of new branding strategies. I'll give you an example. We did a project with the Rustamji Group in Virar. This was a 3 million square foot project. He has brought IKEA into the project. Okay. And it was 29 lakh apartments. You're selling furniture with it for 3 lakh rupees on top of it. So you've brought innovation into it. And you're able to sell. You created an affordable project, but then you now branded it as premium.
Okay. So
I think there's myth around I just want to summarize. There's a myth around affordable housing, and it's been successfully busted by major players like Signature Global, and we've done projects with Prestige also. Again, they did a project near the airport, which is no one thought it would be successful. It was 3 million square foot, which was sold out. About 1,000 units were sold on day one. This is just 2 years back. So I think it's a myth. Affordable housing is here to stay, and I think it is. Affordable housing and mid-income housing forms about 60% of this 8 lakh crore market that we see on a yearly basis. That's what's happening today. So luxury and upper end is just about 40% still. Yeah.
I think two things what I can draw conclusion from is that segment which was not doing good, the luxury segment pre-COVID is picking up. Maybe the contribution pie changes, and housing for all the PMAY schemes their government is focusing because the supply demand gap is so high. I'm sure this segment will do well and has to do well. Housing is core requirement in India.
Just, I think, to add on to what Mr. Pramod was saying earlier, I think everybody in COVID felt that they fell short of one room. Everybody felt that they've suddenly fallen short of one room. So I think that upgrade cycle that started post-COVID, but it was also helped by a lot of things that happened pre-COVID. We forget a lot of things that happened pre-COVID. GST, RERA,
Demon.
These steps happened pre-COVID, which all helped the situation post-COVID. Also, if you see price escalation from 2012 to 2020, there was hardly any price
Hardly
escalation.
any price escalations. Right.
And then when prices started going up, people started fearing that they may lose out. So then people started buying. So it's just a chain reaction now. I think we should just kind of keep going with that chain reaction. And, I think the industry is in a good shape at the moment. That's our perspective.
Thank you. A very detailed perspective. Asking, Mr. Manmadkar, one question I think everybody would have is, we are seeing, traction in the launches and maybe affordable as well, and the other segments across cities that we are seeing. But does infrastructure bottleneck pose challenge for launches? And do customer feels that prices have peaked? And in your interaction, do you feel that the prices have peaked and may come down? Is their thinking that way? Manmadkar ji.
So let me come back to the first part of the question, which is relating to the infrastructure.
Infrastructure challenges.
Now, again, when we look at any of the top 6 cities, the infrastructure, as much as is created, is falling short, because the new demand in terms of people who are occupying for business purpose, for education purpose, for employment purpose, that incoming flow also is continuously there. So not that there is no infrastructure development happening, it is certainly happening. Government is taking absolute steps on that. But however you do that, it is still not sufficient, and that is true for most of the cities. And especially what we hear is that whenever one has to do a job which involves commuting in the city, that is where this becomes a problem. But realistically, if we look at any of the cities, let us take the example of, say, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, Chennai, any of these cities. Now, these cities, except for Bombay, every city is spreading across in terms of geography. And therefore, what is happening, at a lot of new micro markets, I would call as, are emerging. So if you say Bangalore will have typical 4, 5, 6 micro markets. Pune will have micro markets. And what the end customer is preferring is that wherever they have their business, wherever they have their educational requirement, or whether it is employment perspective, so they are choosing to close to the market, micro market, which is suitable for them, so that eliminates their daily commute. And if, as long as the daily commute is eliminated, and you are able to stay in a particular micro market where you can stay closer to the office, reduce your commute time. And one of the other factor which is also significantly important is that each of this micro market is self-sufficient now. It will have its own market, it will have its own mall, it will have its own cinema theater, it will have its own school, own hospital. So that particular, say, 5 or 6 square kilometers area, or maybe 10 square kilometer area, is self-sufficient. You don't have to go across that for any particular reason on a regular basis. And that is something which is more important, that we must understand, right? Infrastructure will always be under pressure, but this is something which is not going to come in a way of growing of the real estate industry. Like in Mumbai itself, we see the offices are now completely moved from earlier from, say, Nariman Point or Fort area to Andheri to BKC to Goregaon. So many, and New Bombay now has emerged after Reliance has shifted their base. 2 big office complexes there, which are in hundreds of acres that they are going, and end user is very comfortable and happy with this kind of decision to buy the house. So for a sector as such, really do not see any impact majorly on that. Some impact will be there, but not a concern as such.
Okay.
Coming to the housing prices, I think we have seen a significant price. We saw that in Amita's presentation also. Now going forward also, prices will keep increasing, but the similar repetition, if one expects, is incorrect from that point of view. And therefore, the prices will steadily keep increasing. We cannot expect maybe 25%, 20% kind of price increase again in a immediate future. But the underlying absorption is very strong, and as long as the pricing is done appropriately and not undue expectations, the velocity will be intact is what is that we feel.
Well, in fact, Dwivedi, if you can also give your views on this aspect as well, because infrastructure challenges are spoken of, and we also know what also was said by Mr. Wadhwani, that there's a lot of infrastructure pushed by the government and the local governments as well. But we do hear and read and come to know from the community developers that we speak that yes, there are times when infrastructure bottlenecks are there in cities, and as they're expanding, the public transport is not as evolved as it should be. So your perspective and
I'll just highlight in 2-3 ways, and I'll give you some examples also from each other. So infrastructure development is happening at a pace which India had never imagined at the moment. However, the urbanization is also happening at a faster pace. And that is the reason we are able to see, first of all, this work in progress creates so much of dissatisfaction, so much of frustration among all the drivers whosoever is commuting from the city area to their houses. But I've seen in many cities, the government is able to come up with so many innovative solutions that there is a lot of expectation that in the time to come, this outpacing of urbanization with respect to the infrastructure development would be handled. And there are, as Mr. Jayantt mentioned very nicely, that they are creating multiple cities within the city. So what happens every time with the help of infrastructure development, if you are able to unlock a new city, it helps in 2 ways. One, the people, there is a willingness to go to farther areas and they are able to get better prices. But at the same time, all the unlocking of these new lands or new areas removes a lot of pressure on price from that city real estate market. That's what we have seen. Like he was talking about, Bombay having many places, as a lot of suburbs like Vasi and all that. I would say because of Bombay, Pune happened. See what has happened to Pune. And Bombay, a lot of pressure of Bombay has been taken by Pune. Huge amount of pressure of Noida, Delhi has been taken by Noida, Gurgaon, and now Gurgaon is going to even Rajasthan, far-off areas and all that. Similarly, in Calcutta also, what we saw, that Rajarhat became a huge supplier. And now Rajarhat has got the momentum, and it has seen huge amount of price appreciation in the last 2-3 years. We are seeing that the government is unlocking almost similar amount of land just adjacent to Rajarhat. Similarly, the southern bypass, Joka area and all that. So these cities are getting unlocked, but infrastructure push is also there. But what happens if you really see the majority of the places wherever metros have worked, it has neither become successful to metro operators, nor it has become very, very fruitful for metro travelers, because the last mile connectivity is still a big challenge. Okay, because unless the entire ecosystem evolves around metro and you are able to get a last mile connectivity so that you don't have to come with a car to the metro station and then go to your office. From office again, you don't have to take any vehicle or Ola or Uber. Then the life will become very, very smooth, which I feel it generally takes time for any ecosystem to develop or stabilize or get the equilibrium. So we are going to see in the time to come. Just to give you one more example of Patna. Patna is a very, very old city. Okay, and Patna, everybody thought that there is hardly any scope of expansion. But what we have seen, huge amount of innovative new flyovers which have come up from east to west Patna, south to north Patna, and along the Ganges. Initially, the government came up with new highways, just like they calling it Marine Drive and all that. And initially, the government came up with 20 kilometers of such roads, which is going to decongest the city traffic. Now they are expanding it to almost 150 kilometers. So these things which we are seeing which will add a lot of demand to these cities, that the life will also be smoother there.
Understood. So I think basically we are getting 2, 3 big messages over here is, the cities will expand, infrastructure push will drive city expansion. That can also, help reduce land prices. And we see, the sector fundamentally doing well with launches because of the response that, the buyers are giving. When we speak of launches, the most pertinent question comes to mind is funding. The funding to the sector is always considered a bit riskier. We have seen huge NPS in the past. Asking Wadhwani ji, what is your experience post implementation of RERA on funding to developers, and do you see financial closure, a requirement like RERA now? All approvals have to be there before you launch the project. Do you also see that there has to be a financial closure, unlike Western countries, which can bring in India? And any thoughts on this aspect?
Yeah, I think financing has been a major challenge, I think, but that challenge has been met by new people entering the business to finance the business. For example, I think earlier the source of money was, private capital for land. I think now with the advent of AIFs and, private equity funds, that capital has been met partially for land. I think still that is a big challenge because still now RBI still does not permit banks and NBFCs really lend, towards land. I think that is the big challenge, and that has resulted in people, doing more joint ventures, more JDAs.
Yeah.
In terms of acquiring projects. But construction finance is, I think, widely available. I think there's no challenge at all. And the people who we talk to in terms of funding, generally speaking, we will not do a project till we don't see financial closure at all. So if we are going to fund a project, we want to see the CF also in place in advance. So people have become more disciplined. But yes, financing, if banks and NBFCs, which hold the major, source of financing were available for funding land, it probably would ease the situation out because, that money is much cheaper than the private credit. Private credit demands a much higher return. And hence that increases the, that makes it more difficult for developers to borrow money for land or, those kind of situations. But this situation that's there presently in the market, where the grade A developers and the listed players have raised, I think your own presentation said 30,000 crores has been raised in the public equity markets in the recent times. So that's a new source. You can see many developers entering the public markets to raise money. This is going to reduce debt. This is going towards new land acquisitions. So that's our take on financing.
And the deleveraging, the numbers that showed deleveraging, and not only for listed developers, we portrait data for listed. Generally, when we do ratings, we are seeing leverage coming down by even mid-sized developers. You also witness this, and you see this discipline being maintained going forward, because it is always the developers always feel that take land, keep launching, and then that they get into that cycle which can impact the entire sector.
I think things have changed dramatically. I think with the advent of the NCLT process, anyone can take a company to NCLT. With RERA, with the whole escrow mechanism in place with RERA, RERA has been tightening the screws in terms of, you see public articles every day. RERA has put a penalty on XYZ developer to pay some lakhs. Though the penalties are small, but it sends a message to everybody. I think that's important. So RERA has changed things quite a bit. I think NCLT has also made developers that much more wary of play hanky-panky with the projects. Developers are a lot more disciplined these days, and so are financiers. So that's what I think.
I mean, it's good to hear from you that this and that is where our credit ratio, which is more than 2 times. Generally in real estate, I've been handling this since a long time. I've never seen going it above 1 or 1.2, and it's more than 2 times for so many years. I think that's heartening for all of us. Jayantt, as you represent the developer fraternity, and what is your take on the risk perception for lending to developers in general? And do you foresee any challenge for meeting funding requirements during the project life cycle?
So two basic principles I must mention here. One is that your source of fund and application of fund. So what is a prudent financial approach is that for anything which is going to be your fundamental capital in the business, which is going to be a long-term capital in the business, has to be funded by the long-term source. And for a developer, land investment is something which is always a core or basic investment. And if we provide a long-term capital for that, then as Kunal said, there is a construction finance available. Initially, you can take that, and then with the good sales velocity, if you offer a good product to the market, then the collections themselves will take care of your cash flow. And then you plan to grow with this sound capitalization of your own business, then I think the business model will be more sustainable. So that is one part. Second part is that when we look at land, if you have a intention of buying land like a raw material, that you buy the land, immediately start design development approval and launch as soon as possible, the probability of one getting into trouble is less, because it's a rolling capital in the business. Money will be invested in the land, it will be launched, it will come back. So that ruling is important ultimately, which will give you a desired IRR so to say. And to an extent, suppose you want to do a marginal growth, you want to do a planned growth, to some extent you can still raise money through the routes of NCD, and you can always focus on the right mix of JD and outright purchase of land. So these are all the means to really see the balanced approach, sound financial approach to grow the business. You may grow a little slower, but I think that will be more sustainable. That is how one should really look at it. And then the risk factor is minimized.
Well, I think so the message is developers are being disciplined. So it is why lenders are also comfortable in lending, and there are various options available, because land funding which is not available is taken over by AIFs or equity. A lot of equity raising has happened. So from there, I think before we take the questions from the audience, one thing that is more importantly and pertinently coming out is on the ESG, environment, social governance practices, and real estate players are also focusing a lot, and I think they need to focus on that. So Dwivedi, your views on how important is ESG for a developer, for the stakeholders, and a couple of steps that that developers are taking to be more ESG compliant.
So earlier, it was not focus of the entire group in the top management, but in the last 2-3 years, like earlier we were focusing mostly on this green building and other things. Now the ESG has become the way of life, and we have not only started, measuring, but at the same time started monitoring. Okay, and we are going to see the results of this in the time to come. So it's not basically being imposed on anybody, but it has been decided by the management, and accordingly we are working on this path. We are going to see a lot of improvement further in this industry with this implementation.
And Manmadkar ji, your views on ESG, and is ESG adding to costs, and do buyers agree to for additional pricing, or it's not that much in that sense from the cost perspective?
Yeah. So as Pramod ji said, that this is purely voluntarily done, but it has its economics built in its own. So, for example, you go for solar energy, you go for water recirculation or water purification, and then use that for gardening, etc. It will reduce your energy cost, it will reduce your water cost, maintenance cost. Then some of the material which is available itself is helping, conservation of water, conservation of electricity, rainwater harvesting. These are simple things I'm talking about. It has really advanced, as we speak. But even if these things, they have a cost to start with, but ultimately over a life cycle of the project or whether it is an office complex, whether it's a residential complex, if we really look at it in conjunction with the savings that are done in the operating cost, I think it's a good way to look at it. And today, fortunately, a lot of customers also understand this. A lot of tenants, those who come into the office complex, are aware of it, understand it. So these are the things. As the awareness has gone up in recent past, much more than what it was before 3-4 years. I think that is something really is helping to focus on this as one of the key ingredient. It is also important from the marketing point of view, because this is something some organizations have their own goal. No matter they have to pay even 5% more. I'm just putting a number, but they're happy because they're committed to that, and most of the organizations are committed for water neutral by so and so date, by carbon footprint zero by so and so date. So this is all now moving to that direction. So to be very honest, nobody really worries about how much is the cost. Cost to some extent initially will be high, but people understand that this is something which is for our own sustainable existence on the planet, and therefore a lot of commitment we see from all stakeholders to this.
Wadhwani, your final
I'll just
comments?
add here.
Yeah, please.
Government is also encouraging a lot on this.
Yeah.
By giving extra FSI, so that also takes care of your, a major cost of it. But even if that would not have been there today, like majority of the major players, they are driven by sustainability, and that is the way forward. You don't have any other option at the moment.
Yes, the top companies in India, not only real estate, have I think they have to now mention also in their annual reports. In real estate, and our experience is not only the listed and the top ones, but otherwise also a lot has been done on because the way the consumption patterns they are looking at for improving the planet Earth. And Wadhwani ji, and one final question is are you looking at ESG compliant developers projects differently, or globally? Is there any change and that can be replicated in India?
So I'll tell you, globally, more and more capital that is being allocated towards ESG compliant projects, more and more. In fact, that is one of the main reasons why we already have an ESG framework. HDFC Capital already has, and every investment we do, we rate the investment as per that framework. And when we take an investment decision, due weightage is given towards that framework. So it's a absolute core of our investment philosophy at the moment. Otherwise, the global capital is not going to be allocated towards real estate funds in India. Towards that end, we are entirely focused on mid-income and affordable housing, which is more sustainable. I think that's one of the things we are doing. We have a whole system called as the HEART program, which basically we invest in prop tech and real estate startups, which are basically helping developers save water, putting water meters, installation of new energy systems. So we are absolutely at the core of it. If we are not compliant with the ESG practices globally, capital will be limited for funds like us.
Great. We had a lot of good insights and trends on the sector, and I'm sure the audience will take note of all these developments. Now we can take the questions from the audience. One of the questions that I have there, some asked. So one of the question is, and Mr. Jayantt Manmadkar can take this question. Just wanted to understand the future outlook of real estate. I think it's a repetition, but what he's saying is, as I see, sales in top cities is being in a downtrend in Q1 2024 calendar year. I think he's comparing Q1 on a YOY basis, and there's some downtrend that is seen. So is that changing?
So the Q1 for most of the peers and us also, we have seen that it is little slower, but that is in most of the cases is impacted because of some of the approval delays. That was in some states there was a state election. After that it was followed by central elections, and therefore that whole approvals came in little later than expected, and therefore most of the real estate players have seen that reflection into the Q1 pre-sale numbers. However, as we speak in Q2, that scenario has come back to normal, and going forward in second, third, fourth quarter, we will certainly see a good catch up. That is how we look at it.
Okay, so maybe it's a temporary blip.
Yes.
Q1. Another question is for Mr. Dwivedi ji. Given so many project launches, do you see raw material and manpower adequately available, or any issues there?
I don't think there is any concern with respect to the raw material, the manpower. Yes, labor sometimes become difficult during when the extreme weather is happening, but that is the reason why you'll see a lot of companies have started from the structure and other technology, precast and all that have been incorporated to take care of those concerns.
Okay. One more question for Mr. Wadhwani ji. With the inherent risk of project execution, as a lender, what initiative or innovative financing is being undertaken for completion of stalled projects?
So what we've generally seen in the industry, luckily we have not seen too many stalled projects in our portfolio, but what generally seen in the industry is that, people have entered into partnerships with, other funds, do some kind of senior junior structure where somebody else comes and does the last mile funding. Typical to what Swami has been doing, which is, come and last mile funding. But in some cases, Swami has some restrictions in terms of how they judge projects. So where projects have been stuck, people either do that, or basically many lenders who are pragmatic, they have restructured their debt, done for one-time restructuring. Also, a more active lender will, actively try and solve by getting in a new developer in place and try and solve the situation by getting some other developer to participate. Typically, when things go bad, a financial institution has to recognize that, there has to be some hit to be taken somewhere. I think if one fails to recognize that, generally speaking, the resolution will not happen. So I think institutions that have been able to understand that, when projects are stalled, if they be more pragmatic and, try and solve it proactively, solutions do happen. But sometimes, you've been seeing this trend where in certain institutions where people don't want to take decisions. So why should I take the decision? Why should I bear the onus of, taking a hit? And then, invariably things go bad and, things reach NCLT and then things get resolved over there. So NCLT also has been a good, I think, fairly mixed experience, but I think it's a good forum if it's enhanced, if it's, well governed and, timelines are kept up to. I think it's a very good way in which, projects can get resolved.
Okay, as we are, we overshot the time, so I'll take the last question. Is there any major delay in approval received in Bangalore market for Mr. Jayantt Manmadkar ji?
As I mentioned that in first quarter we saw some delay, but now that scenario has come back to normal, now we don't expect any delay because of approvals.
Yeah, so great. So thanks a lot, Mr. Manmadkar ji, Mr. Sahni. It's a hard luck that you dropped out. Mr. Dwivedi ji and Mr. Wadhwani ji, it was a pleasure to host you, and it was indeed an insightful conversation.
Yeah.
And over to you, Mamta.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks.
Thank you, Divyesh, for moderating the session, and Amita for your presentation. Once again, thanking all our guest speakers for the insightful views. It was a privilege to host you. And lastly, thank you to all the participants for taking the time out and being a part of this CareEdge webinar. For any further queries, feedback, or suggestions, please write to us in the feedback mail. Goodbye for now. Requesting the tech team to kindly log off.